My issue with the first pick is simple. He had been throwing with anticipation over the middle of the field all game long. But there's one thing to throw a guy open as he's breaking in. Maybe Jose Lima is Kyle Shanahan's son, knows the play that, listen, he wasn't even close, even if he's shimmy and shaking to break in. There's no way with a leap on a trampoline he would have been able to get there.
He kind of stumbled. I'm with you. Even without the stumble, he's not there.
So when you throw the ball directly at the guy in the other jersey, and the guy's nowhere close, because part of throwing that ball, you're going to have to see him a little bit in your peripheral vision. It was devastating. To me, the second pick, I do think your back's against the wall. You got to push the ball downfield. You could feel it immediately once the clock got to 30. They got to go a long ways here, and if they hit a play over the middle, it could get down to the teens fast. They're not going to have that many shots. So what are you really supposed to do? You got to keep the pedal to the metal. It's like I told you, it's alarming to see how little time you have with no timeouts in an under 2-minute NFL drive relative to college, where it feels like you got 7 timeouts.
Because the clock stops after first downs.
You could just feel it. I kept thinking, even if Purdy makes some awesome plays and Ayuk does a one-hander, they might only get to like the 20-yard line and have one play. It was just going to be hard to get down the field.
Yeah. I felt the opposite about those 2 interceptions. I thought the first interception was bad. It was a what the hell. But if, that interception is not the result of a bad decision or poor skill or like trying to do too much. I think it was a bad throw combined with it feels like more than most quarterbacks throws and maybe has to throw with anticipation. Maybe Tua does it too, just because of his arm. Throws with so much anticipation, and I think missed the throw. The second interception, the across the body throw over the middle, trying to layer it over a guy. I mean, you could argue it was just a ballsy throw. I thought it was a borderline reckless throw. Now, you're right. Late game, no timeouts, got to make plays. Like, you're not going to be able to dink and dunk your way. And the other thing, watching the replay, obviously the L22 is not out yet, but from what you can tell from the end zone view that they showed the replay of, they were protecting the sidelines, and the Niners had run everybody pretty much down the field. Your one kind of dump-off option there, McCaffrey was covered because the defender played him to the outside, and McCaffrey broke to the outside. McCaffrey did not break to the middle of the field because, of course, he didn't break to the middle of the field. But so there might not have been anywhere to go with the ball other than throw it away or try to run for the sideline.
I just rewatched it like 3 times. He couldn't have run away. There was a defender.
He couldn't have. I agree with you. There was a guy. So I don't. It may be that there wasn't a play to be made there because everybody did look like it was covered from what I saw. But you just hate to have the game end with time on the clock, with you throwing on the run across your body.
Throw the ball away.
Yeah, I mean that would be the play, right? I mean now.
I'd argue, Guy, when we go back to the first pick. I don't know the exact time on the clock. If under 5 minutes, was there 4 on the clock when he threw the first pick?
It was 1st and 10. I'd have to go back and look at the timing as well.
I would say that I just want to get the time right to make.
I'll tell you here in a second.
Interception happened with 5:36. So it's fair to say that you got that possession and maybe one more, right? So the possessions at that point in time, ball security. And I think sometimes when you say ball security, people think fumble. Coaches say that they also mean quarterback throwing the ball. Be careful with the ball. I think you have to be very careful with your decision making. And if you're going to push the ball downfield when you're only down right at the time when he throws his first
down
one,
5. Yeah.
So it's the same score at the end of the game.
And that was first down.
That I'd rather have you kind of doing some Derek Carr dump offs, just being very careful with the ball because you cannot turn it over. And the game ended there. It felt like the game ended there. I know they got another shot, got a little lucky. The kid missed, I don't know if he's a kid. I don't even know who the field goal kicker is, but he missed the field goal.
Yeah.
That pick was really devastating, especially when you factored in they only had 2 timeouts. They couldn't stop them on 3rd down. You start doing the math in your head. You're like, it's going to be very hard to. They just haven't been able to get off the field. And that's not Brock's fault about the defense, but my point about putting the ball into harm's way there, it's why my issue with the last play and when I went back to rewatch it, but even when I was watching it live, 25 seconds, he's dropped back. It's almost a 50-yard line. They got to get the ball down the field. There's a level of desperation that if they would have had one timeout, at least there wouldn't have been. But the desperation with the clock was, and listen, I understand the nuance to, he's like, listen, every time, and maybe Kyle would say, Juwan Jennings is an idiot. We've gone over this play a million times. When they're playing this coverage, he's got to cheat it inside. That's great. But that's a play at that point in time in the game. I just don't think you can let rip. The sad part is before that, I thought he was playing like a brilliant game. At one point in time, he was like 19 to 24. He's carving them up.
I thought he was really good without the interceptions.
Troy was saying it too. Troy was like, these two quarterbacks have been awesome tonight.
Like here's the thing, and we'll get to a grade and Brock's second half stats, fourth quarter stats. But I don't actually feel any differently about. I don't like Brock to me in a crazy way. This is going to sound crazy. Kind of bounced back from the Browns game. Like I thought, all things considered. Now in crunch time, he had a moment to have a moment, and twice he didn't have a moment. He had a bad moment. The one thing I will add on
the worst thing you could have.
The worst thing you could have. The one thing I'll add on the first interception was the other reason I would defend it a little is to me it looked exactly like their offense always looks. Like that is he has thrown that ball 100 times. Like I've seen them look. Brock throws it. Guy's not out of his break yet. That is just what they do, right? That is just what he does. To me, it's a pretty normal play for them. The other play, now I'll grant you this, like it's an abnormal situation, but that's a very abnormal play. Like that is, the first thing I thought it was Favre throwing it over the middle for the Vikings. Obviously in the playoff, very different situation, but
you just go back and look at where we're supposed to go.
Yeah, I mean, it might have been a throwaway. It might have been a bad play. It might have been. They're going to be defending the sidelines. If you're going to throw that ball, throw the check. Let McCaffrey cut it inside and throw it to him for 8 yards, and then run up and spike the ball again. I don't know, but maybe it would have been 15 yards. That's my point on the first throw. It's like that is what they do. Like that. If he's going to throw a pick on that ball tonight, he's going to throw a pick on that ball again.
Yeah, I mean, I'm with you. I'm not acting. I'm benching the guy. I just think tonight, interceptions and turnovers cost you in games. Yeah. McCaffrey fumble cost him. No different than these picks. What was the turnover margin? 3-1. I mean, you're just not on the road against a desperate team. You have 3 turnovers. If I told you coming into the game they're going to have 3 turnovers, you'd be like, that's a problem.
Yeah, and the first interception did feel Jimmy-esque. I will say that, even though I was defending it to a point.
To me, it was just so devastating given the time of the game. It was
why on first down?
Just 5 minutes left in the game. Your defense has not stopped a soul all night. It just felt problematic. You don't have all your timeouts because you had to blow one Harbaugh style on a delay a game. It's why the other day when McVay couldn't challenge the play, I didn't feel that much sympathy. He didn't have any timeouts at the end of the game. Like it's kind of, having timeouts at the end of the game to me is a big reflection of just an operation. One thing in the first half, weird shit happens. At the second half, those timeouts in a league that is consistently one score with under 5 minutes are like gold. Because even random teams can get you 3 and out and get the ball back. Like, you got to have the timeouts. Missing the one timeout is very costly.
Yeah.
Right? Literally 40 seconds.
So, I mean, do we need to take a beat and evaluate Brock Purdy again? CBS Sports has his fourth quarter stats when trailing. 12 of 31, 166, no touchdowns, 3 picks, passer rating of 17. Monday night, he was 5 of 11 for 58 yards, 2 picks, no touchdowns in the fourth quarter when trailing. And I remember coming into the year, he had the 3rd fewest pass attempts last year in the second half when trailing. Only Jalen Hurts and Lamar Jackson had fewer pass attempts last year in the second half when trailing. So, there are a lot of things that we've talked about with Brock and asked the question, what's real? The one thing we have not had really, I mean, he had the Raider game last year, right, which required late game kind of heroics, big throws, that sort of thing. But tonight was a chance for him to kind of stamp a moment on the road. There was a point where I kind of started getting a little excited for him. I'm like, after they missed the field goal, like, all right, you can't have comeback moments if you're always leading. So here you go. You can't be the hero if you're always playing from the front. So here you go, hero moment. It didn't make it. So the question is, does it affect in any way the way we look at Brock Purdy after this Monday night game to you?
You just have to question if they get in that position, are they going to win the game? And you can't feel confident right now. Not that they can't, but you have to question, in these situations, is he good enough is the wrong way to put it. Just can he pull it out?
Will he do it?
Yeah, will he do it? Obviously, he's good enough. We see him make some throws. Like, he's good enough to make passes. And I don't even think he freaks out, really. I mean, he had some plays today keeping scrambles alive. It's just, can they execute it? And right now, they feel a little discombobulated. Part of it, there was a play. There was a play today when he got sacked. They remember when they called it the fumble, and it was clearly like, well, he's either down or it's a pass. But on that play, McKivitz got smoked. I mean, smoked. And it comes down to just the execution of the offense. And, he's taken a beating. I thought Kyle, again, just some of his shit wasn't working consistently. There was a one play where he just got him in some situations where I don't know how much leeway Brock has, but they ran like a pitch sweep to McCaffrey, and they were overloaded on the side. It was just one of those classic, does he have the juice? He's out there to just flip it or something. Like, I mean, you can't just run it into the numbers. You got no shot. McCaffrey was a dead man walking before the ball was even snapped. And if your defensive coordinator is going to get fucking worked, Kyle's got to be good. And he's just, the previous game against the Browns, like, okay, that's hard. This team, we got to do better here.
Yeah.
And I understand you're missing Deebo Samuel, but Trent's was not an issue tonight, right? With him missing. The left tackle felt fine over there. The rotation with the running back, like, there are other ways to help Brock, I don't know, run a quick wide receiver screen. There were some good play calls, obviously.
There were.
But
the Kittle,
they're just, it just feels like he's a little off right now.
Well, and they sometimes they get that way when somebody's hurt.
Because he feeds the two guys unlimited passes and touches. He just feeds them. There's not, and then now he has to go, obviously Jennings plays a big role. And you're watching, you're like, yeah, no shit, keep passing the ball. Like, I like this guy. This is Kendrick Bourne 3 years ago, but bigger. Like, just utilize this guy. He's good. We watch a lot of NFL football. You don't think like the Panthers and the Bears and how many teams this guy would start for?
Well,
I'm watching Juwan Jennings
sure.
tonight. Was he going to get like 3 years, $30 million, 18 guaranteed?
I will say this. He did lead the Niners in targets tonight. He had 9 targets.
I know, but my point is, why is it so hard? I don't know. Like, why don't they just use, I guess they did use it.
You're saying like 3rd and 9 is when Jennings gets targeted, is what you're saying.
Yeah, I don't know. Just
I did have a list here I was building of really good Brock throws, John, because somebody made a comment. This is the way I'll summarize. He was not clutch tonight. I did think he responded to the Browns game in a positive way, just overall. And then the last 2 drives kind of sunk. Like, to me, he was rolling towards an A grade. And then he totally sunk the thing, throwing 2 picks in the last 5 minutes. When you say it that way, like, that's a pretty awful way to put it. The first throw that he made on the second drive was that ball to Jennings where he gets absolutely sandwiched. And Aikman says that's as good as it gets right there. He had a huge throw to Ayuk after the Niners had a delay a game that got him to 3rd and 8 over the middle for 25 yards. Minnesota had just taken a 10-0 lead. He had a Kittle hospital ball tonight. Did have a Kittle hospital ball tonight. He had a free blitzer coming off the right, the nickel, and he found Ayuk. He stepped up. He had to step up and then roll right and then find Jennings. The first half, the stat, did you hear Aikman say it at halftime coming back? He said he's
the biggest difference in 2023 to 1996, that hospital ball where everyone kind of pulls up used to just be a 7-car collision where people there was no slowing people down. Those were the balls, like the hospital balls, literally used to get you to the hospital. Now everyone kind of rolls over each other. Everyone kind of sees it. The John Lynch, Atwater leaping into the air to just collide, like those days are over, which he's lucky on that because George would have got absolutely taken out from like 3 different guys.
He did get hit on the hip. I think.
Yeah, he did get taken out. Yeah.
Aikman said at the half, I think this was the stat, I was scrambling to write it down, that in the first half, Brock Purdy was 9 of 10 for 87 yards against the blitz, and he was blitzed on 10 of the 14 dropbacks in the first half. Hit Kittle for a great 28-yard throw. He had a play with Kittle where it looked like it was 2nd or 3rd and 2, and he could have run for it. This is the beginning of the fourth quarter. He could have run for it, and instead on the run hits Kittle for a big gainer.
He's pretty good, the little dump off on the run. That's a play. He had the Lamar Jackson scramble, which was pretty remarkable. It's probably the best run of his career.
Bryson,
but he had several tonight rolling out, throwing that's an element the 49ers did not have with Jimmy G.
Yeah. I thought his game overall, he played a losing game at the end because he threw 2 interceptions in the last 5 minutes. There's no other way to summarize that. And I think what really hurt was he missed the opportunity to kind of have a moment, because you're going to need to do this multiple times over the course of a career and over the course of the season. But I thought all in all, as crazy as it sounds, he did a lot of really good things. Just interceptions are, if you have to go back to the old GFF grading system, John, if you have multiple plus 0.5 throws and plus 1 throws, it's great. And you look at the sheet at the end, you had like 7 of them. But, the interceptions in the last 5 minutes are negative 2.5 throws, and they wipe the whole thing out.
Yeah, well, unlike training camp with the picks, whether he threw 10 or 0, they are devastating, especially in the second half. An interception is just, and part of the reason they were at a huge disadvantage, even once they had the opportunity to get the ball back, and I think some of this is also on the quarterback, is on the play that they got the delay game in the second half. I'm pretty sure it was like a pitch sweep to McCaffrey down kind of the sideline. I forget, it wasn't like a 20-yard run, but they were just really slow, clearly, to get back to the huddle. And I think some of that time, like we used to talk a lot of shit with Harbaugh on the delay games. Part of that to me was always on Kaepernick. And when you're the quarterback, it's on you to rally the troops and gather the troops and get them rolling, right? When you get back to the huddle in some of these situations, and then you look up and there's only 10 seconds, like that's a major problem. Like your rhythm, you set the rhythm of the group.
Yeah.
Right. And that delay a game / timeout was devastating. And that's the difference of 40 seconds and the difference of really rushing it at the end. Right. Because it felt rushed at the end, just based on the amount of time they had. And in the moment that he gets tackled in bounds, I think on the first pass, you just lose 10 seconds like that.
Yeah, well, you don't hit the first pass too, right? And then you get tackled in bounds on the second one. The first throw to Kittle over the middle was a dangerous throw.
Was dangerous.
And
I do think you're allowed. Like I got to have my guy willing to live dangerously.
No, you're right.
On a minute, I got to go get a touchdown. Like that's always been the knock on, let's say, for Derek. Like Derek doesn't live dangerously even in that spot. Like he'll just check down. You're like, bro, we've gone 20 yards in a minute. What the fuck are we doing? You do have to push the ball down the field. And in that situation, they know you're pushing the ball. It's just going to be a dangerous throws.
Yeah.
They're just throws you're not going to make with 7 minutes left to go in the third quarter, right? I guess my point is you get more leeway from the coaching staff to make decisions in that drive than you do in the majority of drives you're going to have throughout the season.
I agree.